Jeremy Scahill, what was your impression of watching this kind of the posture from the Democratic Party at this convention on national security issues, which is what you cover?
Well, I mean, regarding the way that Osama bin Laden's name was used by the Democrats at the convention, it really felt like we were watching a parade of jingoism that belonged in a sports bar. And I think that the fact is that there has been no serious analysis of the president's foreign policy in all of the coverage I've seen of the Democratic National Convention, including MSNBC. There has been no serious, hard-hitting critique of the president's foreign policy from the issues that actually are real, or that distinguish him, from the Republicans. Because the fact is that the Democratic foreign policy is distinguishable from the Republicans only insofar as the president took some of the worst aspects of the Bush-era foreign policy and pushed them forward.
Well, wait a second. That's not entirely fair. I mean, there's some truth to that, but if you look at what's happened on Iran over the past few weeks, I think, where I think the administration has quite skillfully pushed back on pressure that was mounting on them to set a deadline by which they would take military action, I think that was a pretty significant
we have a president who in a 2-week period authorized the assassination of 3 U.S. citizens in Yemen, including a 16-year-old boy who was killed while he was having a barbecue with his teenage friends named Abdul Rahman al-Laki. They have never been able to produce who the target of that strike was.
I just want to make sure that we do not know that he was the target.
The president authorized operations over a 2-week period that resulted in the deaths of 3 American citizens, including a 16-year-old boy. And if you're going to use Osama bin Laden's killing as a football to spike on the national stage, I want the president of the United States to explain to the American people why. If you're going to use it in such a jingoistic way, yes, if you're going to use it in such a cynical way.
Substantively, I agree with you about the drone policy, but it would be political malpractice to, not kind of milk the bin Laden thing on the national stage when you're running against the Republicans.
I travel in countries where these drone strikes happen. I'm not talking about political malpractice.
Right, but we're talking about the convention. So there's two different things. There's the discussion about the president's foreign policy, but then there's also the discussion about kind of how they're using that foreign policy to win a very important election.
But many of the media discussions, including here on MSNBC about foreign policy during the convention, felt like we were watching an Obama for America meetup, not an actual serious critique of this president's most egregious aspects of his foreign policy, where you do see that of the Republicans. There's all of this going after Romney, and I think it's completely legitimate. But some of the core issues of this president's national security policy are not being debated. And I'm sorry, but watching John Kerry and Joseph Biden criticizing the war in Iraq. They voted for the war in Iraq. Joe Biden was the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee and shut down debate about Iraq when it was being debated in this country. I mean, there's revisionism, there's jingoism. To me, I'm not thinking about this from a cynical political perspective. I'm talking about life and death issues that cut to the heart of, are we going to follow the Constitution when it comes to due process for American citizens?
We should disaggregate some of the issues, right? Because I think a lot of things are getting bound up in that, right? There is the ending the war in Iraq, right? The status of forces agreement was negotiated by the Bush administration that we adhered to. There was even some evidence we were trying to get out of it. But at the end of the day, the end result was the president did end the war, right? I mean, we were going to keep quite a large force of essentially paid mercenaries behind. There's a huge embassy, but combat troops have been brought home. And I think that is in one column. There's extension. There's the surge in Afghanistan, right? The increased troops. We have 87,000 troops there, and the deadline for that. There's the decision to order the strike against Osama bin Laden, and then there is the massive drone policy and all of the engagements that we've engaged in terms of bombing and drones across other theaters that you've been covering. So I just want to put those out there as distinct things, and then there's Iran.
And then there's Iran, yeah.
Right. So let's sort of look at some of those individually rather than as a sort of full portfolio. And Tulsi, I'd like to get your thoughts on it when we come back.